Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Real Estate Investing with Jay Conner. I'm Jay Conner, the Private Money Authority, and also your host here on Real Estate Investing with Jay Conner. And I'm just so glad to have you. We have all kinds of fantastic experts come here on the show to talk about real estate investing and all facets of it. And today is no exception. But before I introduce our guest today, I've got a free gift for you for just showing up here to tune into the show. And that is my brand new book, Where to Get the Money Now, you can get for free. And this Where to Get the Money Now book is all about how and where to get money for your real estate deals without relying on traditional or hard money lenders. You see, the reason I'm qualified to write this book is because from 2003 to 2009, I relied on local banks and mortgage companies to fund our real estate deals. But then in 2009, we lost our lines of credit like the rest of the world. So we had to find a better way. So what did we find? We found private money. And that's what I'm known as, is the Private Money Authority. So we've got about 46 private lenders funding our deals right here in Eastern North Carolina. And my book will teach you exactly how to get funding for your deals and never miss out on another deal because you didn't have funding for your deals. So to get the book for free, go to www.jayconner.com/book, B-O-O-K. That's jayconner.com, jayconner.com/book, B-O-O-K. I am going to ask you to spend a couple of bucks to cover delivery, but it'll save you 20 bucks instead of going over there to Amazon to get it. So we'll rush this right out to you. Well, my guest today has got a fantastic and very interesting background in real estate investing. As a matter of fact, he has been investing all the way back since 2001. And I tell you, he's done just about everything there is to do in real estate. He's even experienced the crash firsthand like I did back in 2008, and both of us have lived to talk about it. So my guest has bought houses and real estate of all kinds. He's fixed, he's rented, he's sold, he's flipped. And in fact, he's been a lender on over 1,000 properties. He's personally looked at and evaluated over 10,000 deals, as a matter of fact. And in addition to that, he's built companies for profit. And just recently, he sold one of his companies that he built to a 100-year-old federally chartered bank. Now, here's what I want to talk about. He has moved on now to something else even beyond all that experience. And that is he's now into performing and NLP, or NPL rather, real estate notes. Now, with my guest's experience and the technology that he has, he can, instead of owning millions of dollars in assets, he can control millions of dollars in assets nationwide. So my guest is ready to show you how to be what he calls be the bank and invest in high yield, low risk, securitized real estate mortgage notes. He founded www.usanotepro.com. He'll talk more about that in a moment. That's an online portal that is designed for real estate and note investors looking to create and buy and sell mortgage notes secured by real estate. With that, I'm so excited to have as my guest today, Nick Legamaro, also known as Nick the Note Guy. Nick, welcome to the show.
Jay, thank you. I almost fell asleep in that introduction, man. I tell you what, that was.
Well, I didn't mean to put you to sleep.
No, dude, I've heard it all. I've heard it all before. No, thank you, thank you so much. Hey, going back to the, before the crash. I mean, maybe people will start listening to us older guys now because of what could potentially be coming down the pike in the next year or two to come. So maybe they'll start listening to the older guys here, but we'll see. You know how these young whippersnappers are, man. They think they know everything. But hey.
So Nick, first of all, give us your backstory. I mean, you got quite a bit of experience and history that goes way back. But what's your backstory, and how did you get into real estate, and what took you from where you were to where you are today?
Yeah, I started out in the early 2000s, Jay, and back then, as you probably well know, there was not a lot of education available. I don't think I even had, I think there might have been one REI club. There surely weren't meetups. And all the data and information that's readily available to us today, you had to go down to the courthouse if you wanted to get anything. And I think even back then, the foreclosure listing service, I was in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It came in you had to print it off on a piece of paper. So it was really on a, printed out. So it was really, really inefficient and very time consuming, to say the least. I started out doing, low end fix and flips because I didn't know really anything else. No one was there to teach me. And I got to, when the crash hit in 2007, 2008, 9, wherever you decide it starts, I was very fortunate to get out fairly unscathed. And then I took a little bit of time off. And when I came back in around 2010, there was plenty of information available now. There's educators and influencers, and their social media was starting to become more prevalent, and just data was just so much more readily available. But I knew that I wanted to be in real estate because it was fun, first of all, even though I had a little bit of a setback. But I knew that's really the place to go to generate wealth. And I wasn't sure how I was going to do it, and who I was going to follow and listen to, because now I was under the mindset I was going to go back to really square one and really make a determination on what the best fit was moving forward after we came out of the crash. And I started out wholesaling, and because that made the most sense to me for a lot of different reasons. Low cost of entry, very doable, especially back in 2010, 2008. And I started wholesaling, and one of the very first deals that I got was from a seller that called me, and she had a property for sale. And I went out and I looked at it. I called somebody that I had seen on a sign, and they said, I asked them, it was a Vende Casa sign. I'll just say what it was. And I knew what Vende Casa was. I'm from Texas, or I live in Texas from Arizona. And I go, I know what that means. Let me call them and see if they may know somebody that would want to buy a house. And so I called them, and she answers the phone, and she says, "Hola." And I said, "Hey, hello, do you speak English?" And she goes, "Yeah, I speak English." I go, "Hey, I got this house for sale." Now understand, Jay, I did not have it under contract. I did not have it even, all I did was drive by it and go, oh, okay, that's what a $25,000 house looked like, 10 years or 15 years ago now in that market. That same house today is, well over $100,000, but that's not the point. I say, I have a house for sale, and I'm looking to sell it. And I go, would you be interested? She goes, what's the address? And I gave her the address. I go, hey, you can't go inside though, because there's tenants in there. And the seller said, I don't want anybody disturbing the tenants because they don't even know I'm selling it. So I go and I call her, and she goes, I give her the information, and I didn't think of anything. She goes, what do you want for it? I did everything wrong, Jay. I did absolutely everything wrong. I said $35,000, thinking, well, if I get it for 25, maybe it's going to make a little money. Had no idea even what I was really, really doing at the time. I'm literally driving home, in less than 30 minutes after I had made that phone call. She calls me back and says, hey, Mr. Nick, I got buyers. They're outside the house. I'm like, oh crap, here we go. I go, they can't bug the tenants. And she goes, well, they're not. They're just looking around the outside. And she goes, since they can't even get inside, they go, they want to make you an offer for $32,000. And I said, $32,000? Like I was offended, right? It's like, it's not even my house yet. And I go, well, let me see what I can do. So I called the seller back, and I told her what I would be willing to pay. Long story short, I sold that house for cash for $32,000. And I paid the person that brought me the deal. I gave her another $2,000. So I made like $5,000, which, and those ratios are pretty good, not knowing what I'm doing. So I get another phone call, Jay, from the same list that I had sent out to. And this one's a little bit better of a house, and it's worth probably $50,000. Okay. And it was in better shape. And the lady had a divorce. She couldn't afford the payments anymore. And she owed $23,000, almost the same deal numbers wise, I guess, because I mailed to the same type of list, right? That makes sense. So I call Lydia up on the phone again. I go, hey, Lydia, I got another house. And I go, do you have another buyer with $25,000 down? I go, I'm going to sell it for 50, but I'll carry back the note. And she goes, I think I do. I go, great. Well, I'll give you another $2,000. Didn't make any cash on that deal, Jay, but and I wrote a stellar 5% note for $20,000 or $25,000. And it's like, now I go, man, why was I thinking back then? And that's sort of how I got into the creative deal structuring. And since that point, we continue to do all kinds of creative financing deals. We buy notes, we create notes, we fix notes, we help others write notes. And what I've learned from this is everything starts with the deal. And that's why I wanted to bring this up. I'm going back to the wholesaling side, because there's a lot of wholesalers out there right now and people that would like to wholesale, but I think they're missing a huge opportunity to come in and be a little bit more outside the box and create their own notes with somebody else's asset that they can control. And that's really what we do. We want to learn how to control real estate, not own it, because that's exactly what the banks do. And so that's what we're working on right now.
So you sort of backed into this note thing. It sounded like you had that deal to where, you're wanting to sell it for 50, but the way to make the profit is you're actually having to carry financing to make that profit, right?
Well, that's true. But here's the funny part about this, Jay, is that I didn't even think to ask if she had a buyer for $50,000. Didn't even think about asking that question, because I guarantee if I would have asked it, she probably would have said yes. And we probably wouldn't be sitting here on this show right now, because I would probably still be a wholesaling and not understand what I know today about creative deal structuring. So, with that said, so I did that deal, and sort of to go to what you were just alluding to. So I go, hey, Lydia, how many buyers I didn't even have $25,000 cash, Jay, that I could be responsible with, that I couldn't be not responsible with. And I said, tell me, I go, how many people do you have that got $25,000 cash? That was the number in my head, because this is where people, I think, make the mistake. They assume a lot of things that they shouldn't be assuming, because they're using their own mindset and not what really is reality. And I said, how many do you have, Lydia? And she gets us literally this book out, Jay, and it's page after page after page after page of name, phone number, and cash they have to put down on properties. And I'm seeing numbers like $30,000, $40,000, $100,000. And right then I stopped thinking that I knew what other people had the capacity to do, because I kept putting them in the same box that I was in. I didn't have $100,000. I didn't have $50,000 cash to go do it. And that's what we learn. And that's what I try to teach wholesalers today, is that and the same thing holds true in wholesaling, is that don't assume that a seller wants cash for their house. You think they want cash because that's how you think you're going to get the deal done, because it's a transactional model for most wholesalers. But there's just as many deals to be done that are not 100% cash. And that's what we try to do, is create more of a hybrid model. And that's why the notes is such a valuable tool for us, because we can get some cash now and we can get some cash at some other point in the future. Plus we can get cash flow in the middle, which I know you're a big fan of.
So are you using notes to, first of all, let's just make it really, really simple, just to make sure everybody that is tuning in here to the podcast, when you say you're doing a deal by using a note, tell everybody, what exactly does that mean?
So there's different ways to get to that point. So if I'm going to create a note, for example, on a wholesale deal, and this is what I've done many, many, many times. So I'll buy the house, or I'll control the house either with cash, hard money, seller financing, whatever. It doesn't matter how I get it. And then I'll go out and I'll fix the house or do some kind of rehab to it. It may only be paint and carpet. And then I create the finished product, and I go and I find, instead of selling it to a retail buyer, I go and sell it to a buyer that needs seller financing. And as a result,
who would what's that buyer looks like? Who needs seller financing?
Well, Jay, I will tell you this: a lot of people, and I would say the best way I can explain it is two ways. First thing I would tell somebody to do is go on Zillow, go into your market. I don't care what market is, anywhere in the United States, and search a county for houses for sale. And Zillow will give you 3,000 houses. Okay. Then go into that same search criteria and change the search criteria and look for a number of houses that are offered with seller financing or owner financing. Okay. You do that same thing, that number goes down to maybe 15 or 20. Okay. So we're talking supply and demand here, and the number of houses that are available to be purchased on terms is extremely low. Now, fast forward, I think in your book, you talk about this. Matter of fact, not to plug the book, but it's right here. And you can't really tell, but I've ear tagged or dog tagged about 45 pages in this. It's phenomenal. And anybody that is here needs to get the book and read it regardless of what the cost is. So thanks for finally getting that on the market. But, where was I going with this? I got sidetracked. I think you talk about it in the book. I think you said maybe up to some high number of 70% of the population can't qualify for a traditional mortgage.
That's right. Right around 80% can't go to the bank and get a mortgage.
Yes. So that's where we are today. So if you have a limited amount of supply in the amount of houses that are available to be bought through seller financing, and 80% of the population can't qualify, that sounds like a good position to be in if I'm controlling the deal.
Exactly. Now, do you ever buy a house with a note and then turn right around and sell it with a note?
I do a lot of wrap mortgages. It's one of my favorite strategies, to be quite honest with you. I love, and I think that's where the real opportunity is going to come in once we come out of this forbearance period. And this, the banks will always get paid, Jay. There's no other way around it. They might not get paid today, and they might not get paid tomorrow, but they will get paid because they have the house as security for the loan that they made. And they might have to do a loan modification or deed in lieu or cash for keys, all those other strategies. But at the end of the day, the bank will get paid. What I think is going to happen moving forward, and this is where the private money comes into a big play in this, and this is where you can really help out a lot of people, is that what's different today than was in 2008 is that houses have a large amount of equity now. They didn't have that back then. There was a ton of short sales back then. And a lot of people that are investing today don't even probably know what a short sale is, if you want to know the truth. It's just don't see it. I mean, you can go search that on MLS and see what comes up at short sale, and you might be searching for a while because there's no reason to do a short sale if there's equity in the property. They might not get all of it out, but they're going to get some of it out. So where I see the opportunity coming in, and where the ability to buy something subject to an existing debt is, take for example, it's a $300,000 house, and the mortgage might be $200,000 left on it, okay? But that seller could be in a default situation or distress situation and can no longer make that payment. But there's still a large chunk of equity that has to be come out of that deal. So if you want to come in and buy that property and do something on the wrap side, which we love to do, you're going to have some stack of capital to be able to go and buy a little bit of that, buy that equity position out of the way from the seller to be able to obtain that low interest debt that's so desirable in this model, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So let's be really, really clear for everybody that's tuning in. And by the way, folks, I've got Nick Legamaro here, also known as Nick the Note Guy. His website is www.usanotepro.com, usanotepro.com. So let's be sure everybody understands. So when you're talking about doing a deal on a wrap, let's unpack that for a little bit.
Okay.
So when you're doing a deal on a wrap, you got two notes involved in this transaction. You got one note over here from the seller of a house. The seller of the house has agreed to sell it to you, Nick, your entity, your student's entity, whatever. You're buying it, and instead of borrowing money from the bank or using private money, the seller is agreeing to sell it with seller finance, and therefore they're taking back a note and you owe them. Now, the wrap, we're going to sell that house still creatively, but how is this second note a wrap, and why is it called a wrap?
Well, it's called a wrap because that's exactly what we're doing here. So we have let's call this the underlying Bank of America mortgage for $100,000 at 3%. And we're going to maybe put 10,000 in it, give the seller maybe another 10,000, and we're going to sell it for, let's say, $180,000, and we're going to charge maybe 8%. So that new mortgage that we write is a wrap, and it goes on top of it. So technically, the wrap mortgage is a junior lien or in second lien position to whatever the underlying debt might be in the form of the bank. And that's basically the difference. So I'm going to owe Bank of America, because of the agreement that we say, maybe 3% on $100,000 of balance, but I'm going to collect another maybe $150,000 at 8%. And the difference is what we call arbitrage. And that is when you run amortization schedules, you can really see the benefit or the effect of that over time, as long as you can hold that note in place. Did that help you out, Jay? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I want to make sure everybody's on the same page. So you're buying it, say with creative financing, you bought it subject to the existing note, or it was free and clear, and you bought it, from a note. Now you're going to sell it at a higher amount than you bought it for. That becomes the difference between what you bought it for is going to make up the difference by that junior mortgage. Now, when somebody's brand new, a new real estate investor, it could be like sort of, first question is, how in the world do I keep up with all that? I got this money going out, I got this money coming in. How in the world do I create an amortization schedule? How do I even get started in the note business? That's a lot of moving parts going on right there.
It is. I always say it's not difficult, Jay. It's just complex, right? There's a lot of moving parts. But here's the good thing about it is that I don't do all that myself either. I mean, that's why we use an RMLO, which is a residential mortgage loan originator that helps take the wrap buyers information, pulls their credit, make sure they're who they say they are, make sure they can afford to make that payment. And then when we create that wrap mortgage, then we have it, we send that to a third-party servicing company. A lot of people that have had bank loans in the past with the mortgage, they may have seen this, where it goes from Bank of America to some other entity they're not familiar with, and that's probably a servicer. And the servicer, what's great about the servicer is that they manage everything. So they manage the collection of the payment from the wrap borrower, okay? Let's just say it's $1,000 a month. And then let's just say that Bank of America gets $700 of that, okay? And let's say there's taxes and insurance. Well, the servicer will hold that in escrow, which is extremely valuable. So you're not chasing all that stuff down. And then the difference between those three pieces is the money that goes into my bank account, which is because I'm the bank in that situation, and I get that set up. And there's a back-end lender portal. So the beauty of all of this, Jay, is that although it's, like I said, it's not difficult, it's complex. Everything that we talked about can be done through outsourcing and leverage of third parties. That's the beauty of it, whether it be the title company, the attorney, the servicer, the RMLO, all of that. That's what makes this thing so attractive, at least it does to me.
So as you say, you've got loan servicing company or companies that handle all the details of that. And when it comes down to us as the real estate investor, we need to know how to find the deals, regardless of how we're doing this business. We got to know how to find the deals, right? So we're not talking about that on this show today. So we're finding deals, whether you're a wholesaler or you're going to stay in the deal by using notes. And then you got to know how to find the buyers, right? So your piece here in the middle is how you can make the money flow to make all that work, right?
That is correct. And we started talking briefly about the buyers, and I do want to touch on that. I gave you the little Zillow, test to go out and do. The other test that you can do is go take and put something on Facebook Marketplace and put seller financing available on a property, and tell me how many calls you get. Just don't put my number in there because I don't have the infrastructure to take them all, but you will be absolutely shocked at how many people will call you reaching out that need help, buying. And this is a great thing. And this is what I love about this model, Jay, is that we can help people obtain home ownership that have been told no. And they're good buyers. They're good borrowers. And you know what? I can't go down to the bank and get a traditional loan. I own multiple companies. Okay. Banks don't like that. I'm not a W-2 employee. They don't like that either. Right? If you are in the United States and you have the right to work and pay taxes, and you have what's called an I-10 number, which is an individual tax ID number instead of a social security number, you can't get a loan either. So there's a lot of things that prevent, if you're an entrepreneur or you change your job, that's where that 70 or 75% number comes from. It's not that they can't buy or don't want to buy. It's just they can't get qualified. And then there's a lot of people out there that I call what are cash rich and credit poor. And the credit poor is not even really a number, because a credit poor in the bank size might be somebody that's got a 680 credit score. And in my world, the 680 credit score is not a poor credit score.
Nick, you had mentioned to me that don't you have an ebook or some beginning educational information on note buying at your website?
Yeah, if they go to usanotepro.com and they can, I think there's a link up there that's called ebook. They can surely go in there and download it just to help educate a little bit more about notes. And because here's the thing, if you want to buy or even create a note, you really need to understand all the hierarchy and all the due diligence that goes into it. Because here's what I've learned over time, Jay, is individuals that go and write notes, because I buy notes from a lot of individuals that have created them, is that life happens. And what I mean by that is that somebody gets sick, somebody gets married, somebody needs a new car, somebody dies, and now they need that big lump sum of cash instead of the cash flow, and they have the ability to convert that into a lump sum of cash. And the key to that thing is making sure that you write it and underwrite it correctly so you can get the biggest amount of the balance remaining for it when you do it.
That's great. Nick, before we go and we wrap up the show, I got one last question for you. You ready?
Give it, man.
Put your seatbelt on. Here it comes, all right?
Let's hear it.
Here's the question. If you could only give one piece of advice to a new real estate investor and you only had 30 seconds to do it, what would it be?
Well, the first thing I think of is you have to go get help, meaning you have to go seek education. Even a person with my experience, I still have continuing education to learn as much as I can about whatever industry that I'm in, because I think whoever says that learning from your mistakes, you should learn is a fool, because you should learn from my mistakes or somebody else's mistakes, because you want to accelerate that learning curve as quickly as possible. And that would be my biggest piece of advice. Take the time, invest in yourself, invest in education. And there's tons of education out there that's readily available on YouTube. But take advantage of it and don't try to do this on your own. Seek somebody that's actually done something and can prove it, and figure out a way to piggyback on their efforts and their success. So that will get you to the finish line a lot quicker.
That's awesome. Nick, thank you so much for joining me on the show today. It's a great having you, man. So good to see you again. Even though it wasn't in person this time, I enjoyed seeing you here on the video.
Absolutely. Well, I'm hoping I'm going to see you in North Carolina for one of your big private money authority events. I always like to be in the room with you whenever I can.
That's awesome, Nick. Thank you so much. Well, there you have it, folks. To follow Nick and get started and learn more about notes, go to www.usanotepro.com. That's Nick Legamaro at www.usanotepro.com. He's got a free ebook there for you to start digging into the note business and taking advantage of it. Thank you so much for joining us here on the show, everybody. If you have not subscribed, be sure and subscribe on the YouTube channel and hit that little bell so you don't miss out on future episodes. If you're listening to us on iTunes, be sure to like, share, subscribe. Be sure to give us a rate and a review. So good to have your feedback. I'm Jay Conner, the Private Money Authority, wishing you all the best. Here's to taking your real estate investing business to the next level, and we'll see you right here on the next show with Real Estate Investing with Jay Conner.